Welcome back. Just want to remind you of some breaking news tonight that we brought to you a short time ago, and that is that a police car has been overturned and a bus set on fire at a large crowd gathered in the Hare Hills area of Leeds. Police are saying that's an incident involving agency workers and children. More officers have been sent to the area, and that's amidst reports of disorder. One of the local MPs has said that he's aware of the incident and will be travelling back from Parliament. It is ongoing, and as we reported earlier, our reporter out there, Shingi Marike, brought us up to date with the incident that's happened in the last couple of hours in Leeds, in the Hare Hills area. And the Labour MP, Richard Bergen, has put a tweet out, or an X out, saying, "I'm on my way back to Leeds from Parliament and am in touch with the police and concerned residents about the ongoing incident in Hare Hills." The police say that no injuries have been reported, but they are advising people to avoid the area at the moment, if at all possible. We'll, of course, keep you updated on that situation in Leeds as soon as we have more information for you. You are watching the press preview, first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with the editor-in-chief of nationalworld.com, Nancy Fielder, and former Conservative Special Advisor, Salma Shah. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, the Financial Times reports growing doubts about Joe Biden being able to continue his run for re-election as US president, with fears now being expressed reportedly by Barack Obama and former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The inquiry, which found serious government failings in the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, is lead story in the Mirror. The jailing for 5 years of Extinction Rebellion co-founder Roger Hallam over a Just Stop Oil protest blocking traffic on the M25 is top story in The Telegraph. The Guardian too leads on that jailing, along with several other people. According to The Times, the 5-year sentence is a record for an offence of non-violent protest. The Mail claims the judge in the case spoke for all of us on the subject of what the paper calls eco-fanatics. The Metro leads with moves to sack the head of the Criminal Cases Review Commission, whose failure to act left a man wrongly convicted of rape to spend an extra 10 years in jail before he was finally cleared. The Eye says Labour is to give workers the legal right to ignore emails, texts and phone calls from their bosses in the evenings, at weekends and when they're on leave. The Express welcomes news that for the first time a UK Border Force vessel has returned a boatload of Channel migrants to France. And The Star looks ahead to the hottest day of the year, expected this week. The headline: Scorchio. Will it be? Will it be? Who knows? A reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Nancy Fielder and Salma Shah. Welcome to both of you. Let's start with the US election and this reported intervention coming now at this hour from Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama, and Nancy Pelosi. Are we at a crossroads now, Salma?
Well, it seems that way. So we have these two big figures from the Democratic Party, former President Obama, former Speaker Nancy Pelosi. And what's interesting about this is nobody wants to put their head above the parapet and say it directly or say it to a journalist. So it's all going through these back channels where sources and people close to the former president are suggesting that perhaps President Biden now needs to consider his position. But this is against a backdrop of 20 Democratic lawmakers and the count is going up, saying that Biden needs to step down because of the fear of their own seats. I mean, politics is the same everywhere. But I think it's interesting that other papers, as we'll go through, are predicting that perhaps this might be crunch time and he might be going this weekend.
But as you say, sort of people hanging back on direct quotes. We read that a spokesperson for Pelosi said the reports misrepresented any conversation that she might have had.
Well, it's his decision ultimately, isn't it? And it feels like nobody really wants to put their head above the parapet at this stage and be the one to publicly say he needs to go. I mean, if you look at the front of the Financial Times, the difference, so you've got the really big people in the president's party whispering behind the scenes, and there you have the Donald Trump's absolute fanatics wearing their fake bandages just to show their absolute adoration of him, the extremes for how the country feels for the two men who could potentially be president or stay as president, return as president in just a few months' time is absolutely ridiculous. It's interesting because the president's spokesman says how many times we have to answer this question, he's not going, but this is how politics works, and it does feel like at some point he's just going to turn around and admit defeat.
Salma, the Telegraph saying that he might be gone by the weekend, and we know that he's suffering with COVID at the moment, so is, away from public view.
Yeah, so this is some reporting that has also started, I believe, in the New York Times, which is usually quite well sourced when it comes to democratic politics. And so, the idea that actually it could be very soon. And not in the Telegraph, but other things that have been around, is the thought that actually that COVID might be a convenient excuse for him to be able to say that he's going to resign and not have to do it in a really public way, because let's not forget, this is an election campaign. And one of the other reasons that you're not going to have Pelosi and Obama going out there and saying it is because that's clippable and it's shareable and it's about not having faith in the Democrats. So whether it be Kamala or somebody else, they're going to have to find an elegant way of Biden stepping down, because this is not normal politics. This is massive. If a presidential candidate, the incumbent, is stepping down in an election campaign.
Do you think that would be an elegant way, Nancy, while he's, recovering from COVID?
I'm not sure there is an elegant way at this stage. He should have done it a very long time ago. It's going to feel like he was forced, no matter how they managed to stage it and how they dress it up. But I think he's got to be feeling the pressure, and he's not going to want the party to lose. I mean, I know that politicians are often just in it for the power themselves, and we know how desperate he was to be president and how he really felt it was sort of a job that he was born to do. But at some stage, the polls are telling him that the party as a whole is going to get hammered if he doesn't do it. So I don't think it's ever going to be elegant. I think it's going to be a bloodbath, and I think Donald Trump is going to absolutely love every minute of it.
The Guardian, Salma, they're reporting that Joe Biden is, reportedly he's become more open in recent days to calls for him to actually step down and hand the baton on.
Well, this is quite interesting because there's a particular way you can read this story, which is exactly talking about that elegant sidestep, which is he's becoming more open to it. Actually, this is not something where he's going to be forced out. It is going to be his own decision for the good of the party. So I think it's very interesting sort of semantics. But also in this piece, he talks very specifically, and I think this is interesting, about Biden is asking whether Kamala is going to be the person that can beat Donald Trump. And if that's going to be the case, then perhaps he goes sooner. If there is any sort of tension or any worry about that, given that she still has to potentially win over Democratic delegates, perhaps, it might not be a foregone conclusion that she is then the presidential candidate.
Nancy, very quickly on Kamala Harris.
I don't think they've got any choice at this stage. It's so late in the day, and we know how long the campaigns go on. Who else could really step up at this stage? I think it's got to be her.
OK, Nancy and Salma for the moment, thank you. Going to take a break. Now, coming up, the UK actually sending Channel migrants back to France. Good news as far as the Express is concerned. Stay with us for more.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I'm based in Belfast, a city transformed by peace, but still struggling with its past. Politically, the two sides are as far apart as ever, and it's over that question of who has sovereignty in Northern Ireland, the very issue that's been the source of tension here for generations.
It takes 60 minutes to cross the Irish Sea. It took the British monarchy a century.
I've spent 25 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace.
the political parties of Northern Ireland have reached agreement.
We help you understand the world with us.
Today, we have reached an agreement with the Conservative Party on support for government in Parliament.
We already know what the government gets out of this deal. What exactly does the DUP get out of it? Well, £1.5 billion. Welcome to Winterfell. It's an iconic location in this globally acclaimed drama. Ophelia was the most powerful hurricane this far east in the Atlantic on record. You can't live in a place like this and not appreciate the environment.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, the editor-in-chief of nationalworld.com, Nancy Fielder, and former Conservative Special Advisor, Salma Shah. Let's take a look at the front of the Daily Express. And they are seemingly congratulating the new Labour administration. They're saying that's progress because some migrants have finally been returned to France. Salma.
Yes, so the context of this, just to remind viewers, is that when we left the EU, what we had was rules around something called the Dublin II regulations, which was about returning illegal migrants back to the first safe country that they came from. And that obviously had collapsed. So this is actually quite a big step change in terms of relations with France, at the very least, if not the EU. And the fact that 13 people have been returned instead of being brought to the UK is a thawing, I think, of relations there. What I think is fascinating about this is this is the Daily Express, not really known to be massive fans of Sir Keir Starmer, but they have obviously found enough in this to put a huge front-page splash, obviously featuring President Biden as well, but really focusing on this as important to their readers.
Is this a clear sign of, as they say, improving cooperation?
It's definitely a good sign, isn't it? I mean, this is just a very small number of migrants returned, and we know that the scale is absolutely huge for the numbers coming in. But actually anything that builds relationships and where you've got leaders who are willing to have conversations and talk has got to be a really good thing. And this is a massive issue. We know it never goes away. It's got people elected, it's got people unelected. It's just a really big worry for everybody. So I think any step forward is going to be welcomed. It's interesting, though, like you say, welcomed regardless of politics.
Yeah, and also front page of the Daily Telegraph. Border Force takes migrants back to France for the first time. But let's move on to the Eye. And this story about giving workers the right to ignore their bosses out of working hours, ignore those emails, ignore those texts. Salma, you're smiling.
Well, I'm smiling because I quite like the idea of it, but I just am not sure of how workable this is. So this is something that I think I'm right in saying, and Nancy, you might know better than me, was actually in the Labour manifesto, or certainly mooted around what the Labour government has intended to do. And it's something that is a copy of what's been happening in places like Ireland and Belgium, which is a right to switch off from work. And we've all had it. You go home, you maybe go out for dinner and you're on your phone, you're scrolling, something beeps, and you're constantly, therefore, at work. It contributes to burnout. I think that there's going to be a lot of pushback on things like this because of the nature of work these days. This is not something that they are bringing in as a mandatory measure. So how enforceable is this, I think, is going to be a question. I like the idea of it, but again, I'm not sure how it's going to work in practice.
Very quickly, do you like the idea?
Coming up to some holidays, I think it's really important that people can have their own space, particularly when you're working from home, kids around. We just deserve to have some time to ourselves occasionally.
OK, Nancy and Salma, thank you very much. We'll see you in the 11 o'clock hour. Just want to bring you an update on the story that we brought you, and that is that disturbance in Leeds, in the Hare Hills area in Leeds. There's been a post on social media from the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, on that unrest. She has written that I am appalled at the shocking scenes and attacks on police vehicles and public transport in Leeds tonight. Disorder of this nature has no place in our society. My thanks go to West Yorkshire Police for their response. I'm being kept regularly updated. And we've also had a tweet in from the local MP in the area, Richard Bergen, that's the Labour MP. He'd said some time ago that I'm on my way back to Leeds from Parliament and am in touch with the police and concerned residents about the ongoing incident in Hare Hills. The police say that no injuries have been reported, but they are advising people to avoid the area at the moment if possible. So those are the latest pictures from the Hare Hills area in Leeds. It is an ongoing situation which we will keep you abreast of throughout the course of the evening. Let's take a look at the weather for you now. Well, tomorrow looks mainly dry and very warm for southern and eastern Britain, but the weekend will bring cooler, wetter conditions. Most places will start fine tomorrow, but southern Scotland and areas around the Irish Sea will be murky and damp. Some fog is likely too. It'll be warm, especially in the southeast. There'll be plenty of sunshine through the morning, but some western parts will take time to brighten. It'll stay largely dry, but the far west of Ireland and Western Isles will see rain by lunchtime. It'll be cool there, warm generally, and hot in the southeast, where 31 Celsius, 88 Fahrenheit is possible. That would be the UK's highest temperature of the year so far. Coming up next on Sky News at 11, more on the news of reports that former President Barack Obama is one of those putting pressure on Joe Biden to pull out of the race for the White House. It's 11 o'clock. This is Sky News' extended news review and press preview. Our top story. There are disturbances in an area of Leeds tonight, with vehicles set on fire and police bringing in extra officers. A tale of two candidates. President Biden's re-election bid reaches crisis point after Barack Obama reportedly said he should consider his future. Sources close to the president fight back as the woman who could take on the Democrat nomination rallies her party.
Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win.
Donald Trump will address a buoyant and united Republican Party later tonight, just days after the attempt on his life that seems to have only galvanised his campaign. A failure of the public, the verdict of the COVID inquiry on the UK's preparedness for the virus, and a warning of the risk of it happening again. The Prime Minister hails a reset in UK relations with Europe as he hosts a summit pledging action on migration and unstinting support for Ukraine. Plus, the Strictly saga continues. A spokesperson for star Graziano Di Prima tells the BBC the dancer did kick celebrity partner Zara McDermott during rehearsals. Over the next hour, we'll be discussing today's news with our reviewers, Nancy Fielder and Salma Shah. And later, we'll have a full run-through of tomorrow's front pages. Well, we start with breaking news tonight, and that is that scores of police officers have been drafted into an area of Leeds after a crowd disturbance led to a police car being overturned and a bus set on fire in the Hare Hills area. Police say it was an incident involving agency workers and children. Let's speak to our correspondent, Shingi Marike, who's in Leeds for us tonight. And Shingi, what's the very latest on this story? We can see plumes of smoke coming from the area.
Yeah, that's right, Gillian. That disorder, that disruption is still ongoing in the Hare Hills area of Leeds, which is a part of Leeds just east of the city centre, inner city part of Leeds. And those pictures, you can see those plumes of smoke rising from a double-decker bus that was set on fire in the last hour or so as part of what is clearly quite destructive scenes. We also know that a police car was overturned alongside that bus being set on fire. And just a bit more on the facts as we have them from West Yorkshire Police. So they say that around 5 p.m. today, they were called to an ongoing incident at an address in Loxall Street in Hare Hills. They say officers attended and found an ongoing disturbance which involved some agency workers and some children. They then say that more people started to attend the scene and a decision was made to remove those agency workers and children to a safe place. They then say that people began to gather and disorder, what they describe as pockets of disorder began occurring. And as you can see in these pictures now, we're showing the officers moving back away from the scene, which tallies up with what I understand, which is that some officers left and quite clearly were on their way to try and get reinforcements. They were leaving the area. We understand that no one has been injured so far, but we have had some reaction from the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, who's obviously a Yorkshire MP as well. She has said that I'm appalled at the shocking scenes and attacks on police vehicles and public transport in Leeds tonight. Disorder of this nature has no place in our society. She then goes on to say, my thanks go to West Yorkshire Police for their response. I'm being kept regularly updated. So the Home Secretary being updated on this situation, which is ongoing in Leeds, which has seen a police car overturned, a bus set on fire, and a number of people at the scene, and apparent